Tiger Woods is on the comeback trail. The NBA season is reaching the playoff time, and MLB is back. This is Third and Five. All right, welcome in to another episode of Third and Five. We're back after a little break, a week off, a few illnesses and commitments floating around, but Simon Hampton here with James Thwaites and Dave Rice. Gents, how are we?
Good evening.
Oh, well, like you said.
Muted.
Well, I feel like we've all been sick over the last week, which has kind of sucked. Emotional roller coasters with the Nets as per usual, but we're back.
Mate, it is hard being a Nets fan right now.
It is. It's weirdly annoying though. But
I think I spoke to you guys during the week that I compared it to, we're all from Wellington region, but I compared it to being a Warriors and Hurricanes fan, which most of us would have grown up, and just teams that are just so unpredictable and, good when they're good, but so inconsistent up and down, and you just don't know what you're going to get. And the Nets seem to do it within a game where they just switch off for 5 minutes and they'll concede 20 points to 2 or something, and just put themselves in a whole world of pain and trouble.
Like the other day against the Knicks, they were down by like 20, 25 points at halftime or something, and it's like, shit, this is concerning. And they won by 12 points, and actually in the fourth quarter it was pretty easy. Like they kind of like closed it out pretty nicely in the end.
Thank you, Dave, and thank you, Nix, for reminding me as we were watching and as I was spiraling that the Knicks have blown multiple, I think it's 4, maybe 5, even 6 20-point leads this season. So
2 to us, 2 to Brooklyn.
Yeah, 2 to Brooklyn. So while they were down, put some money on the Nets at 440.
I'm sure a tragic Knicks fan would probably have it somewhere on Reddit where had they won all those games that they've blown, at least like where they've had double point, like 10-point or more leads in the fourth quarter, which I reckon might be near 10 games. If those turned into wins, what does that put them in the ladder? It's probably in the playoffs, out of the play-in. So, yeah.
The Knicks are a very weird team as well. Like Tom Thibodeau is just the sweatiest human I've ever seen in my life. He looks like the penguin from
I'm never going to
movie.
mug someone off for being a sweaty man. I respect that. I felt his pain.
But they confirmed he's coming back next season. I mean, like Julius Randle's sitting at the moment. Kemba Walker hasn't been playing for a lot of games. They've got a good young team though. They're fun to watch. Like Obi Toppin had this massive dunk yesterday. It was an absolute joy to see. Just wish it wasn't against my team, but whatever. Nets got their job done. But it's good. We're reaching the end of the regular season, which means playoffs around the corner. Like you said, side baseball's back, which is exciting. We're going to the not you two. I'm going with my other friends. Going to the Yankees, Red Sox, and
Saturday. Too cold earlier for baseball. It's too cold.
It's beer blanket, mate. Like a blanket. You'll be fine.
That's right. Yeah, it's really good. It feels like things are heating up again. It's pretty exciting. We're seeing more wide receivers in the NFL get big bucks. Stephon Diggs getting $104 million over 4 years from Buffalo. So Buffalo's really committed a few dollars the last few weeks with Von Miller and Diggs getting big paydays.
And that makes sense though, because they're a team that they've now got one of the premier, and someone that really took a massive jump, after his first year or two in Josh Allen. And you can build around that, and they got Stephon Diggs, a year or so ago from the Vikings. Now they're shoring up the defense, which is already pretty strong. Like they're very much we're a Super Bowl contender now. So
also Knox at tight end, great tight end to watch.
Yeah, he's just getting better and better. Yeah,
great line. Weird running backs, but who cares when your quarterback can bloody shake off?
He is the running back.
1,000 defenders.
Are the Bills ahead of the Chiefs now after the Chiefs lost Tyreek Hill?
So they are as favourites, I think, to win the Super Bowl for sure. But I mean, who knows what the Chiefs do? There's rumours that they want to trade up higher to get a wide receiver in the draft. There's also been weird rumours this week that the Jets were going to trade the number 10 pick for DK Metcalf out of Seattle, but that apparently was all smoke. But I don't know. And then there's now rumors started up that DK Metcalf might be on the way to Green Bay. I don't know if I believe any of that, but I mean, every player has a price, probably apart from a quarterback. But I just think, yeah, the DK Metcalf stuff's probably not going to happen. But if it does, it's great.
Packers are very much in the market for replacing Adams. Whether it's Cuff or whether they go hard on and trade up or whatever to get one of the sort of elite. I think there's probably there might be 3-4 elite wide receivers. I don't think any of them are of the class that we've had in recent years when you've had like Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. We've had some really top line guys who have gone really early in the draft. I think there's some good wide receivers, but I don't know if they're going to be having the output right away that someone like Green Bay will want.
Yeah. Well, I think if you're putting Buffalo in this win now category, then Green Bay's, even more so in that category, aren't they? With Rodgers having a couple of years there and losing their top wide receiver.
Well, I think like maybe it was Jalen Ramsey from the Rams that said, "Fuck them picks." If I'm the Bills or the Packers, fuck them picks.
Exactly.
Go for it. Who cares?
And the Rams have just gone and had success with it. So even more so now, you should be like, fuck those picks, basically.
Yeah, I mean, hey, if you're in that top tier elite window where you can actually win because you've got a great quarterback or these great receivers and you just need a few more pieces, fuck them picks.
Yeah,
for sure. If the Eagles started doing it,
I think this off-season's still not done here, so there's going to be a few more things to shake out over in the draft, obviously coming up. I think in about a month or so.
It's normally I think it's probably 2-3 weeks away.
2-3 weeks.
It's towards the end of April.
And then we're all anticipating the draw getting released, so we can start planning our trips in the back half of the year and where we're going to go.
It always gets very exciting because I get far too excited, want to book everything and buy immediate tickets. And Dave has to calm me down a little bit and just be like, James, just wait till close to the game. I'm not paying $700 for a ticket.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's kick into things and lead off talking about the golf. Tiger Woods, basically, I think probably on his second greatest comeback of all time, that 2019 Masters win was up there as one of the great sporting comebacks, I think, in its own right. But to be lining up at the Masters today, he had his first round today. We're obviously recording this just after his first round, a 1 under par round. What is it, like a year ago? They were talking about maybe cutting his leg off after that car accident. To go out and then shoot 1 under par at his age, it's incredible. So where does this rank in terms of sporting comebacks for him to be back on the course at Augusta?
I think it's pretty incredible, right? Like you said, I think after something like that, you probably don't take life for granted at all, considering that, golf has been your career. It's not like he's exactly not had problems with injuries in the past, like with his back. So I think it's pretty incredible that he's playing at the Masters this year. Where it kind of sits in my head, it's right up there. I think the only other kind of comeback in my head that I thought maybe was slightly higher than that is probably Niki Lauda from F1. Obviously had a horrific crash, horrible burns, and then returned to the F1 track. What was it, 40-something days after that original horrific injury in the 70s? Just for me, the mental, mentally, how much that would kind of probably destroy him coming back from that is pretty incredible. But Tiger Woods, I don't know if we've seen anything like it at the level that we're seeing, probably since we've been alive. The only other one I could think of is, thinking about NFL, I'm sure there are others, like Adrian Peterson coming back from his ACL tear, but it's not as bad as breaking your legs. Michael Vick snapped his leg when he played for the Falcons, came back after that.
I think you mean coming back from prison, but sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Not a great human being, but so I think this is definitely up there for sure. At least
the Niki Lauda is a great. I didn't even think of that. It's a great sort of comparison. It kind of shows you, for someone like him, you have to be built, and probably Tiger Woods, you're built differently, to be able to just the sort of like tenacity and the mental strength to be able to, in the case of Nicky Lauda, like it wouldn't have been, people wouldn't have shrugged their shoulders or sort of looked down on him if he never set foot in a race car again, because of like the mental scar that would have, not just the physical scars, but like the mental sort of impact that would have had on him. Yeah, and I mean, just thinking about it, that's obviously had a big Hollywood movie, made out of it. I'm sure there'll be a Tiger Woods biography kind of in the works, maybe 10 years time. Wouldn't be surprised, and that'll probably be the feature of it, which will be this tournament. Rather than focusing on his like life, and everyone knows that it's going to be probably the crash and then the recovery and to this event, whether he the cut this weekend or not.
Yeah, who gives a shit if he makes the cut? The fact that he's even on a golf course, like after that happened, I sat there, probably did the rest of the golfing world and people that know far more about golf than me, sat there and was like, this is his career done. He's never playing golf again. He's lucky to even be able to walk after this. Obviously, like the accident, like speeding, don't speed, like there's a couple of lessons to be learned there, but like the comeback is incredible.
I was doing a bit of research for this and looking at other comebacks, and I came across this article that had like the 10 best, and they're all, like Cleveland Cavaliers coming back from 3-1 down against the 73-1 Warriors, and the Cubs coming back from a 3-1 hole to break a 108-year World Series drought. And so they're all things like that. And then on the list, they also just said Tiger Woods. And it's like, he hasn't even done anything, but just the fact that he's coming back is so impressive. And I think, he could have gone out there today and shot 8 over par, and I would have thought that's bloody impressive. But to then go out and shoot a really competitive round and show that he can still be competitive, I think makes this, for sure, he's one of the great athletes of the time, and definitely one of the great comebacks.
So for me, the ones I was thinking of when we kind of bounced this, Tyson Fury is a big one that came to mind for me. So the comeback from like his like 3-year coke and booze bender, where he got to ridiculously out of shape, to then have to come back and fight who at the time was unbeaten, Deontay Wilder, most feared man on the planet, blah blah blah, to sort of come back and still kind of be out of shape and dominate that fight. He got knocked down twice, so that their first fight where it ended up in a draw, to me that was probably something else that I kind of thought of was on a sort of sporting scale, like an unbelievable comeback to be. Angles, I think he was also very mentally down, like to be where he was probably 6 months prior to that first fight, to then be, on the world stage in Vegas, like all the pressure on, getting hit by Deontay Wilder, coming back up like the Undertaker. So I feel like that for me is another like huge comeback.
I think, Dave, just while you're talking about that, I think that's kind of like an interesting point that you bring up. Like when I was thinking about this, I was thinking of very like physical injuries and physical like comebacks, but I guess like their mental comebacks, incredibly hard as well. Like and yeah, it's a good point.
Yep. And then thinking closer to home, and it wasn't so much a comeback for me. Like, so Dan Carter, but you're gonna have to wait for me. You're gonna have to let me explain here. So Dan Carter. So, I'm not just talking about how he got injured in 2011 and came back. Like, I reckon there was a time after the 2011 injury, and he missed out on being a star at the 2011 World Cup, and ended up going to Donald, who was the most hated man 6 weeks earlier. Like Dan Carter was he looked past his best in the subsequent years. I think he went to Europe, got injured. 2012, 12 he might not even been with the All Blacks because he's overseas. 2013, like you just kind of felt he was gone. Like and for him to have gone from where he was, and you sort of pass him on. I think the next guys are coming through, to then be the absolute star for us in 2015. Especially in the crunch games where he weirdly learned how to drop kick, which he'd never done very well. And effectively, steered us through to that, to winning the title. Felt like that was quite a good, like, sort of, it was a bit of a fairy tale story for him, but it was like, I thought that was quite a good comeback. Not on the same level as Nicky Lauda or Tiger Woods, but it's just one that's a bit closer to home.
When I was thinking about ones closer to home, that was the one that jumped to mind as well. It wasn't just you felt that he was off his best. There were articles in 2014 and even in early 2015, because I think he had a terrible Super Rugby season in 2015, where basically like pundits were saying we need to move on from this guy. He's not the answer. We're not going to win the World Cup with this guy. And then he comes out
that's right.
Age 35 and basically leads us to the World Cup. And this is when we had like a young Beauden Barrett who was playing really well with the Hurricanes, and he was, on the up and up. I think Aaron Cruden was on the up and up then as well. And Carter just, had this brilliant back half of 2015, had this amazing career renaissance basically, and found career best form for a couple of months and led us to the World Cup.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't knock that at all. But Thwaites, you looked like you had a look of anguish on your face when Dave was talking about that. So I want to get your thoughts on this.
No, and I'm just, my kind of thoughts is that I feel like in New Zealand, especially with rugby, we're very quick to move on from rugby players and completely just say like, they're done, let's move on to the next person. We did it with Damien McKenzie. We've done it with a couple of others where, we kind of think that, they may be silver bullets, and then, we completely move on from them. So I think that story is interesting because, Beauden Barrett, there was a time when it was like, Beauden Barrett's done, like
definitely
right,
of late.
early on.
He's the guy now that he's the guy now that kind of people are probably unjustly sort of slagging as, he's too, we need to move on, or let's just go all in on.
We slagged him in the Lions tour. Wasn't he one of the main reasons we had a pretty shitty Lions tour? Like, I can't remember. He was like lights out for like the year before, and then maybe have had a pretty crappy Lions tour 4 years ago or so, whenever that was. But
yeah, I mean, I also think part of that is due to the fact that we do just like churn out good young rugby players as well, and so there's often guys that are playing really well in Super Rugby and knocking down the door. So any drop in form, it's very easy to like clamour for the next guy. But I
want to see some guys, some young star, like, now that there's like a lot of coverage back home of like first 15 rugby, you're going to see these guys. There's going to be a star that like I remember seeing Joe Rokokoko on like first 15, and he was clearly the best player on the field and like just scored like 5 tries in like a big Auckland traditional game. And there's going to be guys like that are 15, 16. I'd love to see them then get picked up by like whether it's the NFL, like the international program, and these guys come to America and give it a real fist. And like, you're going to see that more with both, say, basketball and football, kind of bringing in these international programs where they are trying to scout and bring in these these elite athletes. So it'd be quite cool to see like a New Zealand, born and bred New Zealander kind of at a young age that you sort of get a glimpse of as like elite sort of athleticism and then get picked up.
Well, currently the big predator in the room is the NRL, and they're because a lot of those guys, a lot of those young Kiwis that go play NRL are not actually playing rugby league in New Zealand high school. They're playing rugby union, and then the NRL clubs have the scouting networks. But you're right. I mean, if the coverage continues and we start to get more and more articles that are talking about like the top 20 rugby prospects in New Zealand's high school rugby prospects, and then American franchises or colleges starts to pique their interest, and they can bring guys over. That'd be fascinating, because you're right. I think it's very hard for a New Zealander to go over to America and make a fist of things when he's already 24 and already played rugby. But if he went over there when he's 14 or 15 or even later, maybe even 18, and went into the college system, maybe there'd be more of a chance.
Speaking of more of a chance, I hope when, if it does end up that way, that, we're talking about young, high school athletes like that in New Zealand and Australia, we build better support networks for them. Because I feel like we build athletes up to watch them fall quite a lot now. So, around that side of the world. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, I would agree.
One last thing before we moved on to the next topic. One of the players that, I spent a lot of time thinking about when we were talking about biggest comebacks, and that I really wanted to make a comeback, that obviously didn't, is Michael Schumacher. That was a pretty rough story and a rough go there, but yeah.
You still sort of hold out hope that that he'll kind of obviously not like just being a sort of state to be able to kind of be seen in public, whether it's supporting his son Mick racing, and you just see him in the crowd or within the sort of like team unit. That's what you kind of hope to see. But yeah, as you say, hasn't had a good sort of fairy tale finish at this point.
Yeah, actually,
another one.
The other one, that bloody footballer had the heart attack
Christian
on the field.
Eriksen.
Scored a goal the other weekend, didn't he?
Christian Eriksen, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like,
Yeah,
hey,
I was trying
that's
to
a
think.
big
I'm trying to
comeback
think of football ones. There's not too many that.
I mean, that's up there. He was pronounced dead,
that's different,
pretty much.
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
and on international television. I know they kind of ended up eventually covering it, but that was pretty wild. And probably similar to Tiger Woods. The impressive thing about that is that the short space of time. Like within a year, he's playing professional football again.
Well,
I know for him,
he's in the Denmark team as well. Like, I think Denmark's coming to the World Cup. So
I think he scored a goal in his first minute of returning in the second half on a Denmark game. Got a header.
Yeah. I mean, to like have that happen at the Euros and then 2 years later to be playing at the World Cup is pretty incredible.
Mm.
All right, let's move on to the NBA. And so we're in the final week of regular season. The play-in teams are basically set, I think, in the East and West, and there's basically just some seeding positions that are going to get moved around over the next 2 or 3 games that teams have left. So I'm just going to pull up the standings here, but let's start with the Eastern Conference planned standings. So it's basically going to be Cleveland, Brooklyn, Atlanta, and Charlotte are the 4 teams in the play-in, and
in some order.
In some order. I think it's pretty certain the Hornets will be 10th seed, and the Cavs are, I don't know, actually, about the 7th seed. I think the 7, 8, 9 could change around quite a bit.
I think it's just one of those things as like we obviously support Brooklyn, but as a supporter, you definitely want your team to be 7th or at worst 8th. Like you want them to have that sort of 2 lives. Which is it's a great thing about the plan. Like it's quite clever, whoever the marketing guy and the NBA organization that sort of came up with it. One, you're expanding the catchment of teams that can get through, but and you're adding just additional games, which is revenue. But it's you are rewarding the teams that have finished higher end, finishing 9th or 10th, and you go into a do or die game. You're in or out. Like that's, you want to avoid that. You want to be able to have at least sort of 2 games. It's as if you back yourself, you're unlikely to have 2 bad games. Let's say that.
With those games, just to kind of remind everyone how it works. So I even got confused right at the beginning of the season. Dave had to remind me. 7 plays 8. The winner of 7 and 8 automatically goes through the playoffs. 9 plays 10. The winner of 9 and 10 plays the loser of 7 and 8.
The big advantage is playing 7 and
8. So the winner of 7 and 8 becomes the 7th seed. So they'll play the number 2 seed in the first round. And then I'm pretty confident, you guys might know this as well, but I'm pretty sure that the loser of 7 and 8 will be the host of
I think that's
the
right.
winner of 9 or.
They also get
so that's the other advantage of even if by finishing 8, if you can squeeze into 8, and but if you lose, you get to at least host. And in saying that, again, being Brooklyn fans, Brooklyn have been far better this year on the road. Obviously, the Kyrie factor might have played into that, but then being at home. So,
well, we'll talk about the West shortly, but I think that it makes sense that the 7 and 8 teams get it's a pretty significant advantage when you look at the West, and the Spurs in 10th are 34 and 45, which is not a record that deserves to be in the playoffs. And so they should have to be
the Suns or Grizzlies would be, or no, it won't be the Grizzlies, but the Suns would absolutely love to see them come through. Just crawl their way through to 8.
Spurs in the first round, basically rest all the stars. But
so who have you guys?
East,
hang on, who have you guys got going through in the East?
Yeah,
because for me, it's super clear. I think the Nets are going through. They're going to beat the Cavs in the 7th and 8th. Doesn't matter who's at home and who away. And then, I've got the Hawks as well.
What's Jarrett Allen's status?
Who knows? Mobley's out as well at the moment. So, I mean, good for the Nets. Sucks if you're a Cavs fan. The future looks bright if you're a Cavs fan. But I think, Trae Young's just been absolutely lights out lately. So, that's my 2 teams.
I think Nets and Hawks are pretty, both Charlotte and Cleveland are actually, to me, very similar teams where they future is bright in both of them. Like, yeah, but having the season they've had, like, has been a pretty good year. Probably slightly exceeded expectations. But yeah, I'd be surprised if in amongst those four, if it wasn't the Nets and Hawks that got through.
So then that would mean that the Hawks would probably be the 8th seed if this works out. And that would mean
there's too many permutations to kind of
probably play that. Well, I think the Heat are definitely going to be the 1st seed. So 8th is definitely probably going to play the Heat. And then the 2nd seed could be any one of the Celtics, Bucks, and 76ers.
Yeah. So I think that we're pretty unanimous there. So who are the 4 teams? Because I know the West have already been very much distinctly now that the Lakers have been booted.
Honestly, I think so. The West is pretty clear for me as well. But anyway, so the Timberwolves could theoretically get into the playoffs over the Nuggets at the moment.
What are their who have the Nuggets and the Timberwolves got? Like, what's the realistic placing?
Well, this is a thing. If the Nuggets lose both their last games and the Timberwolves win their both their last games, they get in. So the Nuggets are playing the Grizzlies tonight. The Timberwolves are playing the Spurs.
And then the Nuggets have the Lakers and the Timberwolves have the Bulls.
Yeah.
And the advantage
but the Lakers are going to be rested. And
did you say the Nuggets had the Grizzlies tonight?
Correct. Yeah.
The big advantage of that, and obviously the result will be known by the time most people ever listen to this. The Grizzlies cannot move, I'm pretty sure. So these are the sort of games where the Grizzlies lose by 30, not because they're not trying, but because they're resting. Like, they've solidified in 2nd. The Nuggets have far more to play for, which is avoid the play-in. Even if the Grizzlies are full strength, like, just the mentality, like, the Grizzlies don't need to win this game. Yes, there might be a bit of a mental, like, you may face these guys in a best of 7 coming up, but really it's a one-off game. You don't need to push anything.
These teams are resting everyone. I mean, look at the Suns last night. They rested Paul and Booker and Ayton.
Yeah.
The Bucks the other night rested and Giannis, Middleton, a bunch of others at the Clippers. Like, these guys are really resting their players at the moment.
Yeah, and I mean, on Sunday, I think it is, like, regardless of what happens, the Nuggets are playing the Lakers. LeBron's done for the season. Russell Westbrook's sitting at the moment. They're probably not going to play AD. Like, why do you want an ACL?
Doesn't LeBron need to play a couple of games to get that scoring title? Isn't there like he's currently leading, but isn't there like a minimum game?
No, he's not leading anymore. I'm pretty sure Embiid took him over.
Embiid with his 45 points a game, kind of getting it.
So let's just assume it stays what it is. So Timberwolves, Clippers, Pelicans, and Spurs. For me, it's pretty clear. I think the Timberwolves are a really good team at the moment.
And
they've
Clippers
played well down the stretch. And I think the Clippers, now that they've got Paul George back, definitely winning that. So I think the Timberwolves are winning the 7 and 8 with the Clippers, and the Clippers are probably.
I'm going against you on that. The Clippers are winning the 7th and 8th. The Timberwolves are winning the next one.
I think.
Really?
Yeah, but Clippers have been great now that Paul George is back.
And we'll know in a week's time or a week and a half's time, if what we're saying, if the Hawks, Nets get through and fairly comfortably, and the Timberwolves and Clippers get through pretty comfortably, then that, while we've talked about having the play-in that's quite exciting, brings extra games, it actually isn't a great advertisement, because you've got quite clearly the sort of, two teams, there's 2 inferior teams that even just were lucky to be there. Is one argument, certainly in the West anyway, where the Spurs, and who's the other team? Is it the Pelicans?
Yeah,
those teams are lucky to be there.
So, like, who knows? Like, I mean, these are do or die games. Like, I mean, like, we all know, like, as watching the Nets, like, where we've gone into games and just been like, oh, we're absolutely going to kill them, and then suddenly we lose to this shitty team that doesn't have any stars, like, and just being like walking out like, how did this happen? Like, we just beat the Trailblazers by like 5 points like a couple of weeks ago. So I don't know, like, I like it because, to be honest, it makes teams not tank as early in the season, keeps the trade market competitive. Hawks deserve to be there. Maybe the Cavs don't deserve to be there.
The other thing is, like, both the Spurs and the Pelicans have gotten in based on a late season surge. And for teams that are both 10 games under 500, that, like, you're right. Like, if this was back to a normal playoffs, they wouldn't have been. Yeah. They might have gone on a surge, but they wouldn't have had the motivation to do so. But they've sort of benefited from not giving up.
And actually, looking at the East, the Cavaliers have had a really good season, and it's only they've trended really fun. Like, to be honest, if there was 10 more games, the Bulls are probably
100%.
on the
Bulls
outside
have
of
been
it.
so shit. The Bulls are getting swept straight away. They will be lucky if it's a gentleman's sweep.
You know what?
And they go out 4-1.
Because I didn't realize that the Bucks rested some of their stars the other night. But given you look at that table and there's like a 3-way tie for second, it's an interesting time to be resting players. But that tells me that the Bucks coaching staff are like, well, if we get fourth, we get the Bulls. Oh, I could deal with that. Or maybe the Raptors now. But, if we get third or fourth, like, there's a good chance we get the Bulls. I'd rather them than, like, getting second and getting the Nets or Hawks. So, like, not that they're trying to lose games, but that's an interesting time, given it's like do you not want to get second seed? In a normal situation, you probably would. But because of the strangeness of the season, arguably it's better for those teams tussling for second to be third or fourth based on who the opponent could be.
Yeah,
I don't know if there's I don't know if there's too much of that going on. Like Katie said it like best the other day when he was interviewed, when he was like, "You'll slowly go mad if you try to do this."
We also
absolutely kind of agree with that.
Absolutely, but I mean, they're having a rest. It's about time management of the guys. Like Giannis, you can't play too many minutes. Like, you do need to rest these guys, so that is a bonus. But clearly, you're resting all those guys. You're pretty much conceding a match in a situation where you're on like a 3-way tie. That's my point. So, like, yes, there's obviously huge benefits of resting him because it gives Giannis a 3 or 4 day break and Middleton. So yeah, they're going to be better for it. So the long run, it's better. But like, all I'm saying is it's an interest. I think a lot plays into the fact that they probably don't mind where they end up. They'll back themselves from second, third, or fourth.
I mean, these guys are all wired into like believing they're the best team in the league and the best players in the league. That they will not care about whether it's. I mean, I think probably they would agree that Chicago is probably the easiest team to meet, but I don't think they're going to go into a game against Miami,
like
Boston, Philly, or
Brooklyn,
or anyone thinking, "Oh shit, we need to avoid this team," because they're not thinking like that at all. But this is a good way to like move into our next topic, which is what's the NBA. But now that we've sort of decided who we think will be in the top 8 for each conference, if we go through each conference and pick a surprise outcome. It doesn't have to be necessarily each conference, but just a surprise outcome. It could be a top seed getting knocked out early. It could be a low seed going deep. It could be a player performing exceptionally well or poorly, whatever.
Raptors. I'm taking them in the East. They got a superpower. Teams have to play them in Canada. Unvaccinated players can't go. That means if they pull the Celtics, there's been rumors swirling around that Jaylen Brown's not vaccinated and at least one of the starters not vaccinated. They're playing the 76ers tonight. Matisse Thybulle can't play.
He's just ineligible to play, bro. They didn't say it.
Yeah,
it's like,
but
it's so good. It's so good.
This is their superpower, and like people sleeping on the North again. Like, I mean, the Raptors aren't a bad team. Serge Ibaka is great. Like, not Serge Ibaka.
Serge Ibaka plays for the Bucks.
Serge Ibaka's off. Yeah, now he does. But like they've got a great team. They're going to do well. I think they can do like maybe a like sneaky little like run into the playoffs. But we'll see what happens. There's definitely my team.
Well, they're going to finish 5th and probably make one of those 2 seeds. For me, I think I could see the Warriors getting knocked out in the first round. I think they're probably going to come up against Denver, and we've talked a bit about this Denver side having a bit of maybe unfulfilled potential. And I think this Warriors side is kind of banged up and struggling a bit for momentum and struggling a little bit to gel together and get it all going. And they certainly don't look like the Warriors sides of old, particularly in the last month or two. And so I think probably out of the top 3 seeds in the West, I think the Warriors are far and away the biggest side that has potential for a first round upset. And the fact that they're coming up against a good Denver side as well, I think if I was going to pick an upset, I'd pick the Warriors getting knocked out first round.
Yeah, that's good. Good stuff. I'm still, I'm just sort of delaying things. So sort of, good stuff.
Well, it's good because I've got a West position if you need more time.
Yeah, I'm going to go East, and then I've actually got a West as well. But I'm going to go Miami.
Oh, we
Heat.
were doing. Yeah, sorry, I went west before east.
I'm going to go Miami Heat to lose the first round. Is that
Up
a surprise?
against who?
Well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We just discussed that it could be we think it's going to be one of the Nets or the Hawks. I don't actually know which one of those is more likely. But I think I can see both Trae Young and the Hawks, and obviously I don't think it'd be. I think the Nets would be some favourites. So as much as I think the Nets are, I could see them also losing the first round. That's what they've done to me as a fan this year. I could see, the Heat. I wouldn't be surprised to see them lose. And then in the first round, and in the West, is it a surprise? I'm going to say I think it's going to go Grizzlies Suns final day.
Nah.
The 1, 2, and seed, is that a surprise? The two teams that are far and away the best two teams in the conference.
I know.
You have like a 10-game lead on the third seed.
However, I still think that's a surprise prediction because the Grizzlies especially.
Enlighten me.
Because
I get that they're not hyped up and they're not big markets, and the Grizzlies.
No, but it's not about being big markets. It's just they're also just like they're a young team. People have they've had a great season and done well. They've probably really absolutely exerted maximize their kind of full potential. But end of the day, people will still think the Warriors, especially if Curry can come back, are going to be too good. Doncic and the Mavs. You've got, especially if the Nuggets, like if Murray and whatever his name is can come back, and help Jokic. So I feel like they're not feared, but I just think I'm just predicting that it's whether that you call that a surprise or not. That's the Grizzlies to make the West Finals. I'll call it that.
Okay.
I'm gonna do my East one quickly.
You don't like it?
You do your East. I like the Grizzlies, but I don't think it's especially spicy. We want spicy. We want those spicy meatballs, mate.
My spicy one is that James Harden's going to get booed by Philadelphia fans sometime in the playoffs.
I love that.
Because I think I've been kind of following his numbers because I'm enjoying it, because he's not playing that well, and he's racking up big assists, but Embiid's doing all the work, I think, at the moment, and his shooting percentages are really low at the moment. I think there's a history of Harden not showing up in big games, and we saw that a month ago when the Nets played them, and he was terrible. And I think this Philly side is not going to go deep in the playoffs, and I think Philly fans are going to turn on him because they're going to realize that their franchise is not going in a particularly good direction. I think, having traded most of their assets for him. If
you're Philly, you definitely want the Bulls. You want to get third to get the Bulls in that first round. Again, we talked about you're not trying to position yourself into a situation, but as a Philly fan, you do not want to be taking on the Raptors. And again, I don't know. We don't know who's vaccinated from the 76ers, but if they lose some of their support players...
Well, we do, because they're playing there tonight, and Thibault won't play.
Yeah.
So I understand that. But, they haven't confirmed that, but if he is out, he is such. They
said he's ineligible to play and offered no further reason.
We actually talked. Well, we'll find out in a few weeks or a week or so if he misses again because of whatever.
He is ineligible to play. He can't travel to Canada. If it was an illness, the thing is illness.
The thing is with we spoke about this a while back, that the 76ers, their biggest problem right now is the lack of depth. So if Embiid got a niggle and couldn't play, in a 7-game series and couldn't play the minutes that he's playing right now, then they're absolutely gone. Everyone's beating them. But if you lose a support player like that, especially with Harden not really delivering on his sort of name, then I think they're going to really struggle. Embiid's putting up crazy numbers, and that's how they're winning. He's putting up 40 points a game at the moment. Can you do that every game in a 7-game series? Arguably, you don't need to. You just need to do it 4 times. But they can't afford to not have all their support guys firing, and they need to get more output out of Harden. He's shooting at 20-30% in a lot of these games.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, looking at the standings now and the way things are going to fall, I would say 76ers staying exactly where they are. Toronto staying exactly where they are. And that's your 7-game series, your 4-5 playoff. Just looking at the way things are falling at the moment. So it's going to be interesting. But I'm excited for that. I can't wait to see Harden receive a swift dose of karma. But my spicy take on the West, LA Clippers, deep run. I really think they look good. I think they've got a couple of things to sort out there. But, Paul George is back and looking good, and, their team's looking good. I think they're fired up.
And so that's actually, for them to have a deep run, they're going to have to get through, my teams that I've predicted, my very bold predictions of the number 1 and 2 seed making the final.
So the Clippers are making a run. So they're knocking out the Suns or the Grizzlies first round.
I reckon they'll knock out the
Grizzlies. Said earlier, he's
the
Grizzlies. Remember, he said they're beating the Timberwolves 7-8, which puts them at 7 to play the Grizzlies 2v7.
Hey,
cool.
Spicy
I like
meatballs.
It's a lot of spice. It's a lot of spice.
I love it. It also pits Dave Grizzlies, Thwaites Clippers. That's what we want. That's what the crowd wants.
Let's put a bet on it. Let's do it. If it happens, let's do it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Love it.
Grizzlies in 5, maybe 6.
Also, just quickly while we're talking about the 76ers before, it was deserved. But again, it was interesting to see Doc Rivers call out a player. Did you guys see this? I think it was last week when they lost, and basically Doc Rivers called out James Harden. Because they're like, do you think there's a problem with your bench? And he was like, no, I think it was more a problem with James than the bench.
I did. I saw the quote. I didn't hear it.
Interesting. Because, I'm all for players, making players accountable. Maybe not in the media, though. Because it obviously didn't work out well with Ben Simmons there. So
no, and I don't think Harden's, maybe to a similar extent to Simmons, I don't think he's the sort of guy that, you can, when guys, there'll be certain players that you could probably say that and then they'll turn around and give you a 40-point game or, a triple-double or whatever. But there are other guys that's actually going to go the other way. And
you do that Harden to KD. KD's getting fired up. You do that to a Harden, he just probably pouts.
Well, let's just see what he's up to tonight. 3 from 11 field goals. 1 from 3 pointers. They're losing to Toronto. So there's your answer.
I think that's the depth more than anything. But
that's pretty much in line with how he's been playing for the last 2 or 3 weeks. So and the comments are you casually just didn't mention that he has 15 assists. He always gets lots of assists because he just lobs the ball into Embiid he lobs the ball into Embiid to put up.
15
you do remember, you do realize that an assist can be you bring the ball up the court, then you palm it off to Embiid then does everything and scores. That's your assist, right? It's not.
Yeah, he's really been putting up big assist numbers, and I think, Embiid's. I would love to know, see a chart of how many of his assists just lobs into Embiid to just do one of those fadeaway jump shots does. But maybe I'm being too harsh on him. Maybe I just better. Some good spicy takes. But yes, Philly's losing to Toronto in Toronto. So there you go, a possible playoff preview.
And how much great swift karma would it be if Philly and Toronto play in the first round and Philly get knocked out because of vaccination stuff? Because that was one of Harden's things to moving. I'd fucking love it.
Damn, Matisse Thybulle, the guy. Apparently, Marks wanted Thybulle in the trade, but I guess the vaccination thing probably had something to do with not bringing him, I would think. Surely they went after Maxey, and then the 76ers were like, nah. If Maxey, no way they're getting Maxey. Yeah, Maxey's
but surely that was like,
that was probably what they wanted. Yeah.
Maxey.
They should be pretty happy with Drummond though. Curry's injury problems are a bit of a worry, but anyway, lots to watch in the NBA. MLB opening day today just started. We saw I think the Cubs had a win. I think the Mets are playing the Nationals at the
On
moment.
on the
So
baseball, do they normally like? So I know obviously here in New York is arguably the biggest rivalry in American sports, arguably, but certainly in baseball, is like the opening round. Do they do that as like, are there a lot of rivalry games on or series?
Are you talking about
this week?
the Yankees and the Red Sox?
Yankees and Red Sox.
Okay.
So that's on here in New York. But like, is it for opening round? And this to me would make a lot of sense because that the way that baseball works, right? Especially for those that don't know, is like a lot of the time they'll play in 3 or 4 match series, right? So this is to minimize just unnecessary travel. So they'll play 3 or 4 games back to back, either like every day, sometimes twice in a day. But like, is it at the moment for this opening round? Is it all like rivalry games?
It's not always rivalry games. No, like it's just odds that actually the Yankees weren't supposed to open up against Boston, but because
Just because of the delay,
lockout.
Yeah,
the Yankees were supposed to be in Texas to start the season, but
yeah.
So I mean, I think you're right. Like Yankees Red Sox, as a side note, that would be the biggest rivalry I think in American sports because American sports don't really do like rivalries in the same way like English soccer has them.
Mate, that's such a shit take.
No, it's not. Tell me, how is it a shit take? What are the rivalries? What are the historic rivalries?
Packers Bears biggest rivalry in baseball, maybe, and then you got like Steelers Ravens and
no,
a whole bunch of other shit.
I'd argue that it's and this is a good.
I think American sports rivalries tend to be more based on the quality of teams and like, you know, I think like the Steelers and Patriots had a strong rivalry in the last 10, 15 years with Roethlisberger and Brady there. But I don't think any of them compare to like a Manchester United Liverpool, which is like a fierce 100-year-old rivalry, which is, I think, the closest thing to what Yankees Red Sox is.
I mean, like nothing compares to English football, but I don't know, like if baseball was as relevant as some of those other sports were in America now, like in today's world, I'd buy into that. The reason why I'm not buying into that is because obviously like MLB has made some decisions probably over the last few decades that have probably pushed certain new fans away.
What do you think?
I agree. Yeah.
What would be let's just side note to big rivalries. So like I said, I think it's Yankees, Red Sox. Let's forget about the stature of the sport.
Just on that quickly, because I think like I agree, baseball's stature is like 3rd in the rankings behind NBA and NFL by quite some way. But I do think if you asked like a random punter what the biggest rivalry, like particularly an overseas punter, like what the biggest rivalry, they would recognize Yankees Red Sox before they recognize Steelers Ravens or even Packers Bears, I think.
Yeah.
Tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah.
That's a fair point.
I think if you were to isolate football, I think Packers Bears is probably the biggest. I'm trying to think in NBA. Would it be Knicks Celtics? No.
Lakers Celtics.
Lakers. Oh, just from the 80s. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, 100%.
Yeah. But that I mean, did that predate? Was there a big rivalry in like predates the sort of Magic Johnson, Larry Bird era? Was there a big? Was it like the Bill Russell?
There's a there's a fantastic.
Haven't seen that yet.
Series on HBO Max called Winning Time. It's got Bill C. Riley in it, and it talks about when the Lakers drafted Magic Johnson. Fantastic, goes into it. Definitely watch it. But I guess back to baseball, opening day is exciting. Unfortunately, Yankees didn't get to play a game today because of the weather here in New York. But I'm excited to go on Saturday. It's good to have baseball again. I'm actually really excited because it's such a social sport, because obviously we don't get cricket over here where you can just go out and sit out on like the grass, have a couple of beers in the sun kind of thing. Like that is baseball. That is the pastime where you can really do it. So I'm excited to get things going and get into it more this season for sure.
They need more grass banks at baseball stadiums.
That stadium concept that they had for Oakland looked really cool and looked like it had like that grass thing. But obviously, who knows if Oakland can actually keep the team.
No, I agree. I mean, it's great. There'll be baseball every day for the next 6 months. There'll be something to keep an eye on every day, which is nice. I think it's going to be a pretty interesting season. I think there's a few clear contenders like the Dodgers and the Braves, and probably the Blue Jays. I think are top contenders, but I think there's some interesting storylines So if we had to pick like a surprise for the season, what would you pick for the season?
I don't know if it's a surprise. So one, I'm definitely going to take the Mariners to win their division in the World Series.
Put money on that.
I drunkenly put money on that after listening to you, Sai, and jumping on the spicy odds at $41. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I'll back it. The other one that I saw, which I don't know if it's super spicy or not, keep me in check here, Sai, is Ohtani to join the 30-30 club this year. So 30 home runs, 30 bases stolen. Last year he was a couple shy on bases stolen. He had some great home runs, but also, like, I don't know if there's like a 30-30-30 club where, 30 pitching starts, 30 home runs and 30 bases stolen. That would be an incredible milestone. Yeah, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, I'm hoping he gets to that 30-30 club at least.
He's the guy to watch this season, I think. Like, this guy is phenomenal. I mean, to do one of the things he does, like pitch as well as he does or hit as well as he does, is incredible. And the fact that he does both is amazing.
It's weird. Yeah. Well, it's weird, right? Because it's like when you're growing up, you assume, well, me at least, not knowing a lot about baseball when I was younger, assumed that you would always do both, much like cricket, where, like it happens. And then you get over to America and you realize there are people that are pitchers and they don't bat, or there are kind of these like almost athletic freaks that can do both. And Ohtani is definitely one of them, which is awesome to see. It's exciting.
I think what happens is like there'll be probably guys that do that at high school and are great at them, but by the time they get to a point where they're talking about getting on a pathway towards like the majors, their coaches are just like focused on one and nail one because it's so competitive.
Well, yeah, but I mean, when you think about like for both disciplines, whether it's being a hitter or pitching, like particularly pitching, like the amount of like investment and time to be able to like perfect the art of it. Whether it's to get the strength to be able to pitch at 99 or 100 miles, but obviously you have the variations. Like to do all of that, the art form to do that all, like that in itself, like how you even have time to have a hit. It's like all you'd have time normally is just kind of like when you're a bowler in cricket nets, and then you just get to have a little slog at the end. But like to then be, you're right. Like that's just pure natural, like freakish talent.
I think the interesting thing is, right, like I remember Sai and a couple of other friends that follow baseball like talking to me when I was like, is pitching that hard? And they're like, James, how many pitches do you think they throw in a game? And what was it, Sai? Like 80 pitches?
90 to 100.
90 to 100, right? So which is basically bowling 15 overs, probably exerting more on your shoulder.
Definitely.
With the amount of variation you're doing. And then doing that probably like once every 4 days.
4 or 5 days.
So like, I mean, like a test match, how many overs is someone bowling, in a day, and they're just repeating that constantly every 4 days for 6 months. Like
you can only really compare to a fast bowler. Like spinners, it's irrelevant. So yeah, you're talking about how many overs can a Jimmy Anderson bowl in a 5-day period?
Mitchell Stark, and like how Mitchell Stark shoulders tats, but like watching some of these pictures, then like putting that comparison into my head, I was like, holy shit, like this is that is insanity.
Yeah, and then to go out and hit and so 45 home runs as well. It's like
so that's going to lead to my kind of, I don't know if I've support them, not necessarily support them, but I kind of follow them because of the staff power factor. And you got Ohtani and you've got Mike Trout. So for me, I'm going to make a bold prediction and say that the Angels, so Trout's going to be injury free all year, which is probably going to get proven wrong in week 1 and he goes down, but Trout be injury free and that the Angels actually sneak into the playoffs. I don't think they're going to necessarily go all the way or anything, but at the end of the day with 2 of the best players in the comp, if they can get there, then and I think that's the way baseball playoffs work. It's all about just getting in there, and then it's a bit of a lottery and, so yeah, that's my prediction. It's surprise, and that's probably as much that I'd like to see them do well.
I think you want them to do well, right? It's like you've got Trout and Ohtani, and it's like I think Trout's been in the league like 10 years, and he's been to the playoffs once. It's like if LeBron James just was the greatest player in the league, but never went to the playoffs. Like, you want to see these top guys in the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean that's a good analogy, because you do see this with other guys, like someone like a Dame Lillard, or like you definitely see you saw. I mean, Matt Stafford isn't like an unbelievable player, but like he was the sort of guy that's was in the Lions forever, and then he's now finally kind of jumped, and you'd see that with Trout. Like, he could go to like any number of these contenders, and I'm sure because of on the back of him on a team that's already established, they'd go very, very well. So I mean, that's kind of what I like to see. But yeah, so I'll keep an eye on the Angels, and as I think you've sort of mentioned offline, like it'd be, obviously when they're in town in New York, could be a good game to go to with the star power that they have.
I think they're the one to watch. They're the one to mark in your calendar. It's annoying. I think they're doing midweek games. Their 3-game series, like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday this year. But I think for me, I'm going to go with two notable contenders of the past few years: the Atlanta Braves and the Tampa Bay Rays, to both miss the playoffs. Atlanta Braves won the World Series last year.
I like that. No Freddie.
So no Freddie. They've got a pretty good replacement at first base, but I think they're in a tough division. The Mets have a really good roster. The Phillies have a really good roster as well. And so it's a tough division there, and there's a lot of good teams in the National League as well. So the playoff spot's going to be hard to come by there. And I don't know, I can see them regressing a little bit and maybe missing out. And then the Tampa Bay Rays, they're like one of these small market teams that always seems to like unearth guys who like outperform what they should do, and all these pitchers you've never heard of that suddenly throw really well. And so I'm kind of backing them to finally have an off year where they don't quite hit on as many of these under the radar guys. And they as well are in a tough division. They've got the Blue Jays, Yankees, and Red Sox in the division. So
yeah, I mean,
I could see them getting beaten up.
That'd be good for the Yankees. Good for the Yankees if they have an off year.
I can see them getting beaten up. They might, they'll be a tough beat, but I'm picking them to be a little bit down,
Now,
finish around the 500 mark and miss the playoffs. So those would be my two predictions, but definitely going to be good to be able to get out to Yankee Stadium a few times this year.
Bit of a segue on it, but Philadelphia Phillies. Is there a worse named is there any worse name in any of the sports?
Yeah, probably the Nets. The Nets, it's not a cool name. I really don't like Brooklyn.
But when you just really think about Philadelphia Phillies, if we were to kind of put other cities in that, it's like calling New York New Yorkers.
New York Knicks, the Knickerbockers.
No,
I
don't mind that. There's a bit of history around that. Like the Knickerbocker, that's better than Phillies. It's not that the Phillies on its own is fine. Calling them the Phillies, that's all good. But when you give it, when you put it in full, Philadelphia.
What about like Red
Phillies.
Sox and White Sox? It's not great.
To be honest, the baseball has some. They could definitely improve their names. Cubs.
Well, they had the Indians for a while, but
I mean, the Pelicans kind of sucks.
Yeah, there's actually not a lot. There's a lot of pretty ordinary names. You come to think
Minnesota Wild.
You know what's actually very good? Supersonics.
Athletics.
Supersonics is good. So we'll be good to see them back in a couple of years in Seattle.
The Commanders, not a good name.
I've always hated the Washington Wizards as well. The Wizards just kind of isn't that cool for.
I thought Canterbury. That's Canterbury.
Canterbury cricket team.
Yeah, Utah Jazz could probably have changed their name instead of keeping that. Like, you don't really think of Jazz in Utah.
No, obviously. There's a lot of other places that have that. I'd say New Orleans should take it.
Well, hang on. Aren't we glad that Charlotte changed from the Bobcats back to the Hornets?
The Bobcats.
that Charlotte Bobcats was awful.
The problem, I don't know what that was about, because at the end of the day, the Hornets were a hugely popular team in the 90s. Maybe not America, certainly in New Zealand. But
what it was about is that franchise went from Charlotte to New Orleans, and that's what that was. And they had the rights, and then they gave it back to Charlotte because they had the Bobcats. Charlotte Bobcats was fucking awful.
I think my worst American sports names are in the MLS, where like a bunch of them have tried to like adopt European sports teams, and so you've got like Real Salt Lake, and like Inter Miami, and what are some of the other ones? New York City FC is based off Manchester City, but there's like a bunch of them where they've like tried to Europeanize American sports teams, and you're just like
you can kind of understand them doing it because 90% of the fans are probably expat Europeans, but if you include you Brits as well.
Real Salt Lake.
That's incredible. Yeah,
it's pretty ridiculous. Are we doing some bets? We got any betting advice for the weekend?
Yeah, I think
the NBA is hard because I think there's going to be a lot of teams resting guys that's not going to become clear until game time.
Well, I think what we should probably do is keep an eye on the games tomorrow after the games tonight, because there are a whole bunch of games that will decide seeding. Sunday's games, not so much. Tomorrow night we've got obviously, which is Saturday in the Southern New Zealand, Australia. We've got Cavs Nets that will decide the 7th, 8th seeding, and a couple of other ones around. I think Bucks have a couple of games. The Sunday games I would probably avoid at the moment. The Pacers, I think, go up against the Bucks on Saturday, and then maybe like us on Sunday or something like that. Those games I'm going to stay away from because most teams will be resting players on Sunday. I don't think there's a lot of mixing around that can happen with seeding on a Sunday. I may be wrong on that, but I think the main ones happen tomorrow night.
Yeah.
I think you're right, though. I mean, basketball, maybe you could. There is probably money to be made in the sense of making predictions on, ahead of time as to teams you think will be resting players, or because of, again, we've sort of spoken about it today, where they don't really have anything to gain by winning or losing. There's no impact to them. So, and so will the odd makers factor that in before they know the starting lineups? So that could be opportunities there on the weekend. So let's take Sunday, which is the last day of games.
I could see someone like Atlanta getting up over Miami tomorrow.
There's some big shit that's just probably about to happen as well. So at the moment, as we're recording the pod, the Bucks are up over the Celtics. Basically, what that means is that the Bucks and Celtics would be tied on wins losses. So it basically makes the Bucks basically go into full-blown win mode. They've got the Pistons on Friday, so you'd want them to stomp the Pistons, which they should do. And then on Sunday, they go up against the Cavaliers, which is good for the Nets. The Celtics, however, go up against the Grizzlies on Sunday.
Celtics only have one game left, so the Bucks will be ahead of them, I think.
Yeah, so that's huge.
But I think Miami's probably going to hold on to the top seed, and so I can see Atlanta with a bit more to play for, potentially getting up there and maybe having kind of good odds going up against the top seed team.
What about baseball? Now that baseball's back, what about betting on?
Hard to bet on because there's such fluctuation day to day. Maybe there's a good pitcher matchup. I know Max Scherzer's
who's the pitchers
tomorrow night.
Who are the pitchers for the Yankees Red Sox this weekend?
So
when's Garrett Cole playing?
Cole's tomorrow, opening day for the Yankees against Nate Eovaldi.
Okay.
Both pretty good guys. The wild card will probably be Saturday when Luis Severino is pitching for the Yankees because he hasn't pitched in about 3 years because of injury. But he's a really good pitcher when he's pitching. So that's pretty hard to predict.
It's hard as well. To be honest, in any sport, any of the American sports, it's not easy. But then to do it opening round when you just you can have a look at spring training, but I don't think there's a lot of you can read into those. And
are you getting on the Formula One Australian Grand Prix?
Australian Grand Prix. Now, the thing with Australian Grand Prix having gone to it
a bit stronger.
I remember maybe it was just the race we went to, but it was about as boring as a race you can have, where it was just from start to finish. It was actually Hamilton's teammate. I can't remember his name now.
Bottas.
It might have been him. It's a few years ago now, but there was no overtaking. So it's one of those ones where I think, end of the day, I think it's between Verstappen and Leclerc this year, is what it's sort of already indicating, in terms of just the car capabilities. And I think it's going to be, I think winning pole, or certainly coming out of the start of the race in the lead, I think is a good chance to take the race.
Yeah, I wonder what it might be like getting Carlos Sainz on pole on.
Carlos Sainz is
podium potentially.
He's a good because now it's been pretty much established that it's I don't think the odds for Leclerc or Verstappen are going to be great, but Sainz is probably your next best to sort of look at.
I know that Mercedes came out and said they haven't made the improvements yet to get back up to contending, but I do think Mercedes are going to at some point improve a lot and be a lot more of a serious contender.
They do it every year.
And so at some point there might be some money to be made, and that Mercedes might be seen as slight outsiders when they go into a Grand Prix that they're actually going to do quite well at. So I would keep an eye on Mercedes, I think, over the next few races to see.
Yeah, and then there's obviously live betting with the Masters.
Cameron Smith.
And yeah, obviously getting behind my boy Cameron Smith at any opportunity. He's top 3 at the moment. So,
what do you think is reasonable for him to finish? Because at the moment he is clear favourite to win the tournament.
Cameron Smith,
followed by Dustin Johnson, followed by Scotty
Scheffler.
Surely Scotty Scheffler. No. I think someone else is leading.
Yeah, the South Korean. First time the South Korean has ever led a Masters.
I can't believe that Scheffler, who's number 1 player in the world, the absolute most informed player, who's only 2 shots off the lead, is not favourite. The reason that's because Cam Smith got 8 birdies and 2 double bogeys in the first round. So the 8 birdies is just like unbelievable. I could see Cameron Smith winning this. He's never won a major. I wouldn't. But the fact you're telling me he's a favourite, it's not great. You don't want to be picking him when he's favourite. It's quite a good one.
Are you telling me Scheffler's a good bet at $8 then?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, as good as any bet, because in a place like Masters, which is challenging with the conditions, often at this time, I don't know why. It's like they hope that the biggest music festival in England is held in mid to late June, when it's pretty much guaranteed to have rain. Like, why are they in Glastonbury? Why don't they just wait a month? And it's the same with the Masters. Like, it literally has thunderstorms and rain like every year. Like, just push it back a few months. Like, I know obviously it kind of fits into a schedule, but surely the US Open, which is predominantly played in Florida or California or whatever, could be played earlier. But anyway, so I think those. I mean, I guess what people probably love about it is that plays into it, because it kind of spices things up. But I could see being. I think Scheffler's he's the informed guy. He's the smart money.
I should put money on Scheffler to win the Masters.
But that's not like a great tip. He's the number 1 player in the world. He's won 3 or 4 tournaments this year.
Tell me.
He also
really wants
without
to
going.
I know nothing about golf. Give me your
looking for
win the fucking Masters.
Scotty Scheffler also is a unique thing where he's only 25 years old, which is younger than our boy Simon here, and he still has a full head of hair, yet he looks at least 33. Like, he would have to be the oldest looking 25-year-old. That's not because he's bald. Normally it's because, the guy's receding heavily, and it's like, okay. But
David Rice, stop avoiding the question. Who the fuck should I put money on to win the Masters? So tell me one person.
Well, how much is Cam Smith paying?
Cam Smith is a favourite at $6.50. Dustin Johnson at $7. Scotty Scheffler at $8. Sungjae in 10. Patrick Cantley 13. And Joaquin Niemann or something like that.
My prediction is that Cam Smith will win. On the odds, I would put it on Scotty Scheffler.
What?
So no, just take away the odds. Take away the odds. No, but that's because I'm being biased, because I like Cameron Smith, so he's my I'm always going to back him. However, Scotty Scheffler at the odds you just gave, I think he's your best bet.
So if I put $1,000 on each one, I'm walking away with money, right?
Absolutely
If I-
not. Absolutely not.
2 golfers in a 90 golfer field.
What? This is why I fucking hate golf. God damn.
Yeah, well, mate,
If
players
you put
that play golf,
$2,000
this
on
is what-
2 golfers, you're a fucking idiot.
I mean, golf's most casual golfers hate golf because of the frustration the sport gives, and that's not even bringing gambling into it.
So we're ending the pod this week on Dave saying he thinks Cameron Smith's going to win. Put money on Scotty Scheffler. Don't bet on golf.
Yep.
Love it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Oh,
Especially not the
God.
Masters. Especially not the Masters.
Oh, God. Okay.
All right, let's wrap this up. Yeah, good stuff. All right. Enjoy your weekend, everyone. We'll talk to you again next week on 3rd and 5. See you later.
Go next.